Thank you for tuning in to another episode of my podcast. I'll catch you next time. Hey, what's going on? Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast but didn't know how? Well, stay tuned because in this video, I'll go over everything you need to know to get going. But let's get back to a regular spot first. Before I get into the setup, let's talk about what a podcast is. A podcast is an audio file that's recorded and uploaded to the internet for streaming. There's many different types of podcasts, and there's not just one lane for what they can be. Some of them can be informative, some of them can be strictly entertainment. Podcasts don't have to be strictly audio. A lot of people tend to record their podcasts and upload it to platforms such as YouTube. This allows for the viewer to get a video experience, and it's a bit more intimate and immersive. Now the fun part. Let's get into the whole podcast creation process. The first step is pre-production. So this is the step where you figure out what you want your podcast to be about, who your target audience is going to be, and how you want to go about executing it. Do you want just audio, or do you want to add the video element? Because if you add the video element to it, now you got to think about what your set's going to look like and what you want the audience to see when they watch your podcast. Whether you want to keep your podcast strictly audio or add video elements to it, just keep in mind that the audio is what's important. A lot of people tend to think that to make a podcast you need some fancy elaborate equipment. You don't. All you need is very simply a phone or even any voice recorder. Like I said, a podcast is mainly focused on audio. As long as you can get a recording of your audio, that's all you need. Having more gear obviously increases the quality of the podcast, but it's not necessary to get started. Let me show you how you can get your podcast up and running if you do tend to have more equipment, such as a mixer, microphone, and headphones. Here's the equipment that I'll be using in this demonstration. First is the RODECASTER Pro. This mixing console is the centerpiece of the entire process, the brains of the operation. Everything routes into this as well as routing out from it. Next is the microphone. I'm using the Audio-Technica AT2035 condenser mic, along with a pop filter that goes right on top of the microphone. This prevents any plosives and any harsh pronunciation of letters, specifically P's and B's. Instead of using a microphone stand, I'm using a microphone arm. This allows me to add range and mobility to the microphone. I can move it around if I need to, and it stays in front of me the entire time, so if I need to move around, I can still get clean audio. And this is a standard male to female XLR cable. One end plugs into the microphone, the other end plugs into the mixer. Every mixing console you come across will have either one of or both of these options. You can either record into a micro SD card, or you can connect it to your computer to record into any software. Here's how you record into an SD card. Simply take the SD card, insert it into the slot, and wait for the mixer to read it. Once it's okay, hit record and you're good to go. If you want to record into a software onto your computer, a lot of the times you'll get a wire like this. This wire allows your computer to read the mixer and can be used as an input device into one of your softwares. There's a bunch of expensive, high-end softwares out there, but to get the job done, Audacity is a free software to use. Here's how you can set your mixer up to be read in Audacity. First, plug the mixer into the computer. Next, open Audacity. Select the correct input from the drop-down menu. Hit record, and you're good to go. We got the pre-production done, we got the setup done, now it's time to go ahead and actually record your podcast. There's a couple different methods you can use to do this. One, as a one take, or two, you can cut it up. The reason people tend to use the one take method is because it shows a consistent, uncut, unedited version. Everything is more organic and kind of flows smoothly. The reason people would decide to use the edited version is because they wanted to show the best parts and the highlights of the podcast and kind of show a more professionally put together podcast. Along with the uncut and cut methods, there's also the runtime of the podcast. Podcasts generally run from 30 minutes all the way up to 3 hours. It really depends on what you want to talk about and how interesting your conversation is to keep your audience engaged for that long. There's no right or wrong way to do the podcast. It all comes down to whatever you feel fit. You're the creator. The last step in this entire thing is the distribution. How are you going to get your podcast out there for the entire world to hear? Spotify is one of, if not the biggest distributors of podcasts. However, it does cost money to get your podcast on Spotify. But here's the workaround. Anchor.fm. This website is free to use. All you do is create an account, upload your podcast, and they'll automatically distribute the podcast for you to different streaming platforms, including Spotify. Podcasts have become one of the most popular forms of entertainment today. People tend to get their news from podcasts. People tend to get entertainment out of podcasts, music, comedy, whatever. It's so big that there's a wide market for anything that you want to do. Hopefully this video helps you get started on your podcasting journey. So if you're interested in learning more about podcasting, filmmaking, or anything else, visit filmcampforkids.com where we offer free online classes and tutorials, along with full 1-hour classes where we go more in depth.